We are going to demonetize gold. Bitcoin will surpass real estate as well. And it's happening faster than I expected. It will serve as digital real estate.
Is we finally have a way to articulate how Bitcoin can be added to their portfolios and their lives, and it's getting their attention. Listen to this. The $100,000 from the $750,000 property turns into $12.6 million.
There's a $132 trillion monetary premium resting inside the global real estate market. And if all of it rotates into Bitcoin, then you have $6.7 million BTC.
Yeah, I want to pick up where you left, because I think the monetization of Bitcoin and its use as collateral, that's the most interesting part to me. The replacement of the 10-year treasury and real estate as that global bedrock of the global financial system. And I think that the relationship between real estate and Bitcoin is really important in order to see how Bitcoin is going to absorb, I'd say, like the next level of the monetary premium that sits in the fiat system. Because we've already demonetized silver, we are going to demonetize gold, but calling Bitcoin digital gold is actually a bit, it's not an insultment, but it's like, it leads to maybe underestimating what Bitcoin can do. And I feel like real estate, being the biggest store of value in the world, gives a better idea of what Bitcoin can do. Bitcoin will surpass real estate as well, and it will serve as digital real estate. I agree. It will be that collateral that's being used, that the global financial system is being built around, both on the individual level, in private markets, and also in public markets. We're seeing it at the moment in public markets, but I'm also pretty excited about the monetization of Bitcoin on the private side, because there are, within real estate and especially within Bitcoin, you have the ability to build wealth in a privacy-preserving manner. And I believe that the public markets give access to larger pools of capital on the corporate level, which is great. And at the same time, it also gives some space for Bitcoin entrepreneurs on the private level, I think, to really make use of Bitcoin as this pristine form of collateral.
So when you talk about unlocking these pools of capital, like on what scale are we talking here as it moves into some of the private markets that you're talking about?
I think when Saylor said he wants to tap into 1% of the global bond market with his preferred offerings, I think the same thing could be said about real estate, because especially, I don't want to talk about these individual instruments now, but I just quickly talk about Strike, which is a preferred offering by MicroStrategy, which has both the option to convert on the upside into common A shares, and it has a fixed distribution. So there's an upside in it, there's income in it. So it's almost like a digital real estate play, less the tax advantages and the leverage opportunity, but there's also less headache. So I think with these preferred instruments, and the same can be said about MetaPlanet in Japan, I'm jumping now between real estate and these companies that are using Bitcoin as collateral, but I'm doing that because a real estate company, like an insurance company, essentially is a balance sheet play. So what MicroStrategy is doing, leveraging the difference between the value of their balance sheet and whatever the market attaches to their company, is similar to how real estate investors refinance their real estate portfolios to leverage the value of the properties when they build it, taking away the inflation and whatever the market then prices the portfolio in. So I believe that with some of these offerings, these corporates like Strategy, they can tap into the demand for real estate, because I'll be interested to see also what Joe and what Tom are seeing. But what I'm seeing is that traditional real estate investors, the ones that wanted to go into Bitcoin, they've done so over the past 3 years. But there's a large percentage of individuals that save in real estate that have not yet made the leap into Bitcoin. And that is because of regulation, of mental frameworks they operate in. And now they have more familiar products that are not Bitcoin and self-custody, but they are products which are priced around the risk and the yield that is associated with Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is repricing risk and opportunity cost in global markets, not necessarily by the adoption and self-custody, but by offerings, securitized offerings by companies that hold Bitcoin. So this is not something I expected 5 or 6 years ago. I didn't see this coming at all, and it's happening faster than I expected. But this seems to be the adoption of Bitcoin at this point in time on the corporate level and also on the individual level, because a lot of these securitized products are being bought by average investors.
Let me break this down for my fellow Bitcoiners. In just 8 weeks, I've seen a serious shift. More strength, more energy, and fast muscle gains. The reason? FITSCRIPT. They ran 124 biomarkers, blood, hormones, inflammation, and built a fully custom plan: nutrition, training, supplements. No guesswork, no templates. This is functional medicine meets precision fitness for high-performing men who want sovereignty over their health. If you care about optimization the way you care about your money, test, don't guess. Don't trust, verify. Hit the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to check out FITSCRIPT and see what's possible. You opted out of the broken financial system by adopting Bitcoin and taking self-custody of your money. But protecting your wealth is only part of the equation. Now it's time to protect your freedom. My family is stacking sats and stacking flags. A second passport is our hedge against government overreach and uncertainty. If you're a Bitcoiner looking for your exit strategy, our friends at Citizen X will help you secure second citizenship through investment or descent. Book your free call today by hitting the link in the show notes or simply scanning the QR code on the screen.
I'll let Tom chime in here because this is your wheelhouse as well. So do you have thoughts around what Leon's saying here?
Yeah, I guess now in the real estate market, I guess for context for anyone listening, we've worked with several thousand clients in Canada on several $1 billion worth of real estate investment. And these are like mom and pop adding real estate to their lives. They've, over allocated to the stock market. They decided they want some real estate exposure. And from the years 2008 until about, I guess this year or in the last 12 months, it was all real estate discussion. So even on the last Bitcoin cycle from, 2000 to 2024, beginning of this year, we really couldn't change the narrative with our real estate clients about Bitcoin, even though we were doing talking about this for 4 or 5 years. And now I see a change where some of the leading edge of our real estate clients who might have between 5 and 10 rental properties are deciding to do a mini Michael Saylor play, kind of to Leon's point there, where they're tapping into the equity that they have in some of these properties that they've owned for 10 years, and they're refinancing it and allocating to Bitcoin. And some of them who are really aggressive and are really orange-pilled are deciding to outright sell some of their real estate to buy Bitcoin. And this is something I've really not seen until, I would say, the last 6 months. And Leon actually spoke at one of our client events where we had about 1,000 people out there. He went on the stage and basically said, hey, Leon, I don't mean to summarize. You were much more articulate than this. I'm about to bastardize what you're about to say here. But Leon basically said, hey, listen, there's this real estate stuff over here, but there's this Bitcoin, and you better start allocating to Bitcoin or you're going to lose out. And I think the message to a crowd of 1,000 people who are predominantly real estate investors was very well received. Okay, and this is kind of what's getting me excited, is that for the first time, we have an example on how to share to real estate investors how they can think about Bitcoin. And I think to any Bitcoiners, they're going to hear this and think this is obvious kind of stuff. But to this segment of the real estate market, we really haven't done a good job penetrating it. And so one of the reasons I'm really bullish right now is we finally have a way to articulate how Bitcoin can be added to their portfolios and their lives, and it's getting their attention. And then they can take it from there. So I just want to give a quick example. If you take a rental property that is worth in the greater Toronto area of about $750,000, so the value itself doesn't really matter. Every market around the world is going to be different. In this particular example, I'm using a standard rental property for that particular area, $750,000. And in Canada, property has appreciated at about 7% a year. So basically it matches M2. So it's been 7% a year, property appreciates 7% a year. So if we take a property at $750,000, and we tell real estate investors it's going to appreciate at about 7% a year. We all know it's debasement, but let's call it appreciation. At the end of 20 years, that $750,000 property is going to be worth $2.7 million. But now we've started testing this little example where we're explaining to some of our investors, hey, listen, if you are fortunate enough to have some equity in your real estate, you can tap into that equity and allocate it to Bitcoin. And for some real estate investors, this is a nice way to start thinking about Bitcoin because it's brand new to them. They think it's volatile. They think it's risky. They're not completely orange pilled yet. So in this example, if they were to tap into their real estate, extract some equity, let's say $100,000, the interest rate on that right now is about 5.5%, or about $456, $458 a month, whatever that works out to. And some of our investors will have like $500, $600, $700 in cash flow. So the cash flow from the property can pay for extracting $100,000 worth of equity out of that property. If they then allocate that $100,000 of equity that they've pulled out of that property to Bitcoin, the numbers go bonkers over the next 20 years. Because if we take $100,000 now and we allocate Michael Saylor's 29% compound annual growth rate for the next 20 years to that 100,000, I know I'm generalizing and everyone's going to debate if 29% over the next 20 years is accurate or not. But if we do that, listen to this, the $100,000 from the $750,000 property over the next 20 years turns into $12.6 million. The property at 750,000 appreciating at 7% turns into 2.7. So I just want to recap. You had a property, and if you did nothing with it and just kept it for 20 years, the $750,000 property at the end of 20 years would be worth 2.7. But if you just pull out $100,000 of equity from that property and allocate it to Bitcoin at 29% compound annual growth rate over the same 20 years, the Bitcoin value surpasses the property value at year 12 and ends up at 12.6 million for a combined value of 15.3 million. You now took one rental property, again, that was going to be worth 2.7 million at the end of 20 years. But by allocating a little bit of Bitcoin for that time, you turned the property that was going to be worth 2.7 million into a combined real estate Bitcoin value of 15.3 million. Am I being clear with that example?
Yeah.
And this example, and it's the first time, because Ben, we've tried everything. We've tried everything. So I know for Bitcoiners, this is going to sound like overly simplistic and everyone's going to be like, yeah, of course, that's how it's going to work out. But for the real estate crowd, the reason I'm bullish, it's the first time we have an example where somebody who has 2, 3, or 4 rental properties, we're getting their attention and they're doing it. I had somebody, after we shared this example, grab my arm at the end of one of our events and say, hey guys, you know what? I was going to do some stuff, refinance a property. You made me think, because they were going to refinance it and buy another piece of real estate. Mm-hmm. But now they thought, hey, wait a second. I'm not going to refinance it and buy another piece of real estate. I'm going to refinance it and buy some Bitcoin. And this is how we alleviate some of the pressure off the real estate market. We get more and more people allocated to Bitcoin. So now how much capital gets funneled into Bitcoin just from the real estate community? And then, of course, some are just going to outright sell their property and say, hey, I'm done with it. I'll allocate. So I'm not sure if I shared a bunch of numbers. I'm not sure if that was completely clear. But yeah. That's the stuff that I see now. People finally, after years, we finally have a way to get people's attention.
Yeah.
Sorry, a cricket just landed. I'm in Croatia right now. A cricket just landed next to me that is like freaking this big. I've never seen something like it. If I get attacked here, that's why. But anyway, I'd like to know Ben, if that's clear to you, or Joe to you, or Leon. I know you have much more advanced thinking on this. So my example is very basic. But I'd love to get your take on this. Like, is that something that seems too simple for you guys, or is that something where you guys think, oh yeah, like I can see how people are getting it?
I'll let Joe chime in here.
I can't believe how well you guys teed this up, Ben. You made a fantastic show here, I'll say, because what I wanted to talk about was exactly this. Nathan, I think you just put in the chat, how big is the global real estate market? Jesse Meyer's latest estimate, at Croesus_BTC on X. I assume most people follow him at this point. You've probably seen this chart a million times, but it's real estate is a massive portion of the total global asset value. The total global asset value, as of his latest estimate, is $1 quadrillion. So we've hit 1 quadrillion. And real estate is a $370 trillion global market. Now, I actually went in earlier today because I was going to write a post on that. I was going to make a video, but then time kind of got ahead of me. I'll make this video tomorrow. But I actually have some fresh data because I went in and calculated it. The total, and I'll actually pull it up right here. Okay, so to calculate like the monetary premium in real estate, right? Like the difference between what its market value is and actually the underlying intrinsic value, if you will. Basically, the formula you can take is monetary premium equals market value minus intrinsic replacement cost. If we take a home in the United States, for example, the median home price in the United States is about $500,000, $503,800. The intrinsic replacement cost, right? So the labor, materials, everything, that's $324,000. So the monetary premium, which is the difference between those two, is $179,800. So that means that your house, right, on average, right, roughly speaking, if you live in the United States, it varies by region, but on average, homes in the United States have 35.7% worth of monetary premiums sitting in them. So that's all speculation, right? That's kind of the investment component of real estate, right? More often than not, if you actually, and there's another data point that's pretty helpful. If you look at most people's portfolio, their largest asset, bigger than their 401k balance, is their home equity. It's their house. And so houses aren't places to live anymore. Like my mother bought her home in, 2003 or 2004 for $400,000. She hasn't updated it, I can tell you. And it's worth $1.2 million now. And that's solely because we treat homes as investments these days rather than what they are, which is a home. And so if you extrapolate, so that's a pretty crazy statistic, but if you extrapolate this to the entire global real estate market, which is $370 trillion in size, then there's a $132 trillion monetary premium resting inside the global real estate market. And so what that means is that there's $132 trillion today, there, roughly speaking, if you just extrapolate this to the entire global real estate market. Again, the calculations need to be more in depth. You can't take the United States as the total global example. But a rough estimate would be $132 trillion, right? And so, these vehicles are now existing, right? Tom, you mentioned that, some of the people you had spoken to, 100 plus real estate investors, were now, refinancing their home or doing a HELOC or what have you. And instead of using those proceeds to buy another property, so one of them was convinced, maybe probably a lot more of them were convinced to buy Bitcoin instead. At least people are coming around to see Bitcoin as a superior investment to homes. Leon, you mentioned this as well, right? And so for individuals, right, as more people come around to this, I have no idea how this, this became so popular over the last month, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months. But it seems like the conversation has really shifted into, okay, Metaplanet, MicroStrategy, and others are really hitting the equity market hard, right? They're they're issuing common stock and using the proceeds to buy Bitcoin. MicroStrategy, right, through their preferreds is hitting the $138 trillion bond market. But there's a $318 trillion bond market, excuse me. There's a $370 trillion market out there, right? With $132 trillion of it being used as an investment vehicle when it shouldn't be. And so this is like the largest asset market in the world, but also the most egregiously priced asset market in the world. And it seems more and more people are coming around to it. And there are more and more options every day for people to just move out of one into the other. Right. And so that's why I'm bullish, right? I think if Bitcoin were to siphon, and I put the numbers up here because, again, I mentioned I was going to do some research on it. I was doing some research on it, but if 10% of that $132 trillion monetary premium rotated into Bitcoin would be a $15.6 trillion asset, and it would be $784,000 per BTC. If half of it rotated in, then you'd have $3.5 million BTC. And if all of it rotates in, then you have $6.7 million BTC. Wow. And that's just real estate, right? And of course, it's not factoring in inflation, how much more these asset markets are going to get marked up, and other vehicles entering the bond market, right? If Metaplanet does a Japanese equivalent of preferred stock to hit more of the fixed income investors. And that's how we get from here to there, right? From where Bitcoin is currently as this relatively new small store of value asset to really consuming all of the speculative premium that's everywhere else, because people are treating these other asset markets like stores of value when they really shouldn't be, real estate chief among them. So that's why I'm bullish.
Hey, you. Yes, you watching the Bitcoin price movements and the latest exciting news. It's awesome to stay informed, but the real power of Bitcoin comes from taking control. Don't just watch, take action. Head over to btcsessions.ca/learn for free step-by-step tutorials that guide you through every major skill you need to know, plus full video playlists for deeper dives on any topic you like. And if you're ready for the ultimate fast track, scroll to the bottom and check out bitcoinmentor.io for premium one-on-one experience with my team of Bitcoin experts to ensure you get it right the first time. Don't wait. Secure your Bitcoin future today. Hit the link in the show notes or scan the QR code on the screen.